Patrick Roddie is a San Francisco-based chemtrails researcher and activist. He was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and has a background in physics, journalism, and photography. He presented his paper Human Health: Impacts of Proposed Geoengineering Solutions to the Paris Climate Conference in July 2015, testified on aircraft pollution at the EPA in August, gave a presentation on geoengineering at the Istanbul Security Conference in December, gave two speeches at the California State Capitol, and attends many scientific conferences where he confronts and exposes the lies of the geoengineers. He records daily time lapse videos over the spring over San Francisco, gets his rainwater analyzed, has distributed tens of thousands of DVDs, hundreds of thousands of flyers, organized dozens of protests, and made the front page of San Francisco Weekly in August 2015. He also posts daily satellite imagery of the global scale of this crime. Admins Facebook groups, runs Stop Spraying Us-SF.com, and is having an absolute blast doing it. Everybody, please help me welcome Mr. Patrick Roddie. Hi, Patrick. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful introduction, even though I didn't write it myself. So,
And it was great.
yeah, yeah,
I appreciate that.
No, it's nutty though, because like in this past year, so much stuff has happened. I mean, like, the climate conference was in July, and all that stuff happened since. I mean, of course there was stuff before, but things are really accelerating. The more like a couple of years ago, maybe like 1 in 10 people knew about what was going on, but now it's increasing, exponentially. And unfortunately, so is the spraying. It's coming really freaking obvious. It's brutal, really, really bad.
It does seem like it's getting heavier and heavier every day.
Oh, it's nuts. I mean, there's if you go to earthdata.nasa.gov, they post satellite imagery of the entire planet, and it's just, I mean, it's hard finding natural weather now. I mean, there's this, like, for example, if you look at today's one, there's this huge caterpillar plume that I call them. This big thing with like tendrils coming out both sides of it. Comes in from in through West Africa, comes up and all the way up into the Mediterranean, and it's just really nightmarish. But here in San Francisco, I mean, yeah, it's worse elsewhere. For some reason, Mexico gets it really bad. I don't know why, but they just get battered daily. There's this like giant plume that comes in there across the over Baja California. They've been doing that for months now, and that all ends up, it comes up through the Gulf and into the lower states.
They're pretty busy.
Wow, the scale of this thing, it's massive. Holy crap. I mean, if we were to do this, first of all, you'd need like a plane or two. And if you want to buy one of these, if you want to buy a plane, like it's $200-300 million per plane. And that's before you start putting dudes and fuel and whatever the hell they're spraying in there. It's massive. It is so huge.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that here in a second. I want to get, first I want to ask you, and before that, sorry, I just have to say, hey, Sirlana and Marilyn and Casper, thank you for joining us in Spreaker Chat, and everyone else who just got here late. Right on. But my first question is, I guess I got to ask you, how did you get involved in being an activist for our environment, mainly chemtrails?
That's hard to say, because I mean, I've always been a skeptic. I grew up in Northern Ireland, and there was BS flying back and forth all over the place there. It was like, I mean, each side had their own claims about how terrible the other side was. Obviously, it was somewhere in the middle. But governments in general, I've known that they're full of crap and have all my life. And but when I was in high school, I used to listen to the Dead Kennedys. Jello Biafra. He
Great
actually
band.
ran for city mayor here in San Francisco. Listen to their lyrics are still very apropos today. Like there's this track, I Am the Owl. I think it's on Fresh Fruit, and he says, and he's talking about like assassinating some dude, and then they say, in 10 years or so, we'll leak the truth, but by then it's only so much paper. So in a way, like if you look at the
Wow.
spying stuff, like, yeah, we were like, everyone's like, what the hell, they're listening to your phone calls. Oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, until everyone says, oh yeah, okay, yeah, they are doing it. And a lot of people don't give a crap. And my BFF Ken Caldera said at the Commonwealth Club, um, they said, well, if the government did sort of admit, oh yeah, we're putting stuff in the sky, most people wouldn't give a crap, because the government can do anything and say and admit to it, and they'll get away with it. But this thing
Hmm.
is, I think, very, very different. The scale of it, it's giant, and the consequences are horrific. Oh, wait! I should be going back to why I'm doing this.
No, exactly.
That
No,
was what your
that's
question was. Sorry, I'll go
no,
back to
no,
that.
that's all right. But actually, how long did you live in Ireland? And did you notice this sort
Well,
of thing was happening there as well?
well, no, they weren't really. I mean, the spraying's been going on since the first patents from 1920, but it didn't really. I mean, it was only experimental spraying, up until really the late 90s, where they really went to town. I mean, you'll have the shills, which we should also talk about later. We'll say, oh, look, but there were trails in the 60s and the 40s. Yeah, but the patent goes back to 1920. But the global deployment is really from the late 90s and onwards. And it is increasing by the year, month, and maybe week. And like a friend of mine had this book about this old ghost town called Bodie, which is on the Nevada border, California Nevada border, and you see these black and white pictures. And it was published in '69, and just look at the skies; they look like the skies of today, because
Hmm.
they have air bases in Nevada right next to it, where they were testing
Okay.
this stuff. So when you see people say, "Oh, here's an old picture," no, it's been going a long ass time. But why I got into it, I was I guess 9/11. When I found out about Building 7,
Right.
that came down without being hit by a plane, and all the other
Hmm.
plot holes in the official story. That's what started me down that path to looking at all the other things, such as vaccines. And actually, vaccines was the thing that really got me super active. Um, because during the whole swine flu debacle, it was that you could. There were people who were just told all this flannel. Oh, you must go. Oh, yeah, especially pregnant women need to go out and get this shot. But when you read
Hmm.
the freaking insert, it says, "Oh yeah, it could kill your baby and sterilize your ass," in black and white on the
Wow.
insert, and it's still there. Go to CVS or Walgreens, whatever your thing, and get the product insert of any of the vaccines. It can be for flu, hangnail, bad hair, whatever the hell they're pushing this week. And Section 8.1 says animal reproduction studies have not been conducted with this vaccine. It is not known
What?
whether this vaccine can cause fetal harm when administered to a pregnant woman or affect reproductive capacity. So
Okay.
Bayer Pharmaceutical couldn't afford a white rabbit.
Right. Right. And with all the
Oh,
things that the FDA doesn't approve, you would think this would stop them dead in their tracks. But something's going on. And
something is going on.
something's going on. And Patrick, I'm sorry, I need to back up just a little bit. Can you explain to, I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but for those who don't know, what exactly is a chemtrail?
Okay, so we've all seen them. Most people think, oh, that's just a vapor trail left behind a plane. So the official line is that when a plane burns fuel, it creates carbon dioxide and water. And the water freezes because it's up there and leaves a trail, and you see it, and it stretches for thousands of miles and fills the sky, which is obviously hogwash.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with that is nothing will water vapor when it's burned is clearly above above boiling point. It's not going to freeze or become a water droplet unless it has something to condense onto, a condensation nucleus. So my question is, what are these condensation nuclei? And there's the rub. The shields have no answer for that one. And what we're finding, we have to go out and do our own freaking water tests and stuff, and I'm getting massive amounts of barium and aluminum and all that kind of stuff in the rainwater in San Francisco, which has 7,000 miles of clear ocean.
That's
with
when we
prevailing
get
winds.
rain.
When we get rain, yeah. And the barium one is one of the most alarming things, because these another thing people are actually finally starting to notice happened in the last couple of years are these incredibly rare sundogs, which is a circle around the sun. If you take a picture of it with your phone, you can see around the edge it looks like a little rainbow.
Right.
So water has a refractive index of 1.33 or so, and ice is about the same, and that creates a rainbow, which you see it's like the top, almost half of it, and to create something like these incredibly rare sundogs, I use that means the hashtags, that's what the shields used to call them. Incredibly rare sundogs have a radius of 21 degrees. So to do that, you need something with double the refractive index. And barium sulfate is 1.66, a perfect match. So back in March and April of last year, I do these time lapses every day, and there was a 30-day period when there was 21 of these incredibly rare sundogs, and towards the end of it, it rained briefly, and I got it's enough to send 2 rainwater samples to different labs, and it came back 160 micrograms per liter of barium.
Oh, Jesus.
Less than 1 gram of barium will kill an adult human.
Oh my God.
Right? Check this out. Also, back in 2011, respiratory failure overtook stroke to become the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. How did that happen?
Wow.
You know, smoking's going down. The factories are in China. We got better emissions on cars. The power plants that they haven't closed down have scrubbers on them. So you'd think the air would be cleaner and fewer people would be dying of that. And also, by the way, particulate pollution also causes heart attack and stroke and cancer as well. But that's a whole other story. But what was even worse, I found out this past week that in England and Wales, Great Britain, the death rate went up 5.6% in a year. 1 year. Jeez. That's a giant freaking leap.
Yes.
But and when I posted that, one of my Facebook guys said, "Oh, hey, think that's bad? Italy, 11%." 11%, and they're saying, "Oh, we've no idea why this is happening. This is freaking omnicide. It's beyond democide or ecocide or genocide. It's freaking killing everything." You know, like when we were kids, there were more insects, there were more birds. Like, where are they gone? You know, it's devastating. And these sociopathic inbred fill in the blanks, begins with an F. They're absolutely, they're beyond insane, and they're all into this whole transhumanism thing, and they somehow think they can be protected from this and transfer their, you know, consciousnesses into freaking computers and go off into the stars. They are absolutely crazy. It's hard not to curse when I talk about these people, but that's what they're thinking.
No, absolutely. I know where you're going with the transhumanism, and believe me, we're going to get into that definitely. Question: what are the stopsprayingus-sf.com and wearechange.org websites? How do you get affiliated with that?
Well, the Stop Spraying Us is just my website. I stuck up to like have
Uh-huh.
a place where I could make sure no shills put like damaging information. Didn't like sort
Right.
of info. So something under my control. But We Are Change started. I think Luke Rudkowski was one of the early. He wasn't the founder of it, but that came out of 9/11 Truth. First, they were fighting for health stuff for first responders, and it became and how Luke and other people would operate. It'd be citizen journalism. They just show up somewhere, find out wherever a scumbag is with a camera, and nail him on the truth, and they'd scurry away or whatever. And I've had a few interesting. And we can get into that later with the Ken
Sure.
Caldera stuff.
Right.
But so and it's once you it's funny though, they're actually trying to like make the word truth a pejorative term. Like, oh, you're one of those people who likes truth. Oh God, you must whatever.
Right.
Um, but when you pick the right side, I mean, and this really is like the great late Dr. Stan Monteith from Radio Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
He would always say, "This is a spiritual battle." And it is, because the people we're fighting are pure capital E evil. And I don't know if they draw on some dark power or just believe they do, but they absolutely, I mean, how else could they start wars and poison the food,
Sure.
drop bombs on babies and just be like complete douchebags?
And it's
Uh,
documented. It's all out there for the public to
And
see.
they write books about it. They're quite proud of it. They think, oh, it's a great thing. I mean, if you try and be devil's advocate, you can sort of think, well, they consider the humanity as a crop, like like in countries that are tax farms, and
Oh, man.
farmers. Will sometimes prune the trees or take out the weeds, and they're just doing like sort of management. But this whole this flannel about overpopulation, the 2/3 of the planet is uninhabited, meaning no freaking farms, even nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, I mean, and so many people believe that. I used to believe that, but it's yeah. So I don't know, they're scummy. But so anyway, I suppose like back how I got into it was I saw like an imminent threat and realized I had to do something, because it's like if you're in an apartment building and there's a fire in the basement, how can you not pound on people's doors and say there's a fire in the basement? And if people say, I don't care, go to the next door. Don't waste your time knocking your head against some like boneheaded person who just refuses to see
Right.
stuff, either
Right.
willfully ignorant or whatever. Move on. There's plenty of people who need and want to know this information, and
Mm-hmm.
I see my role is to get it, or get as many people as possible to at least look into it.
Right.
You want to get that first bit of curiosity. So when you're talking to somebody on the street, you that's all you're trying to do. Get them curious. You don't dump all the information on them, because they'll go, oh, yee. And you should also not come at it from the scumbags' two favorite emotions, which are fear and hate. I don't hate the scumbags more than I would hate a scorpion for having a stinger. It's just
Mm-hmm.
what they are.
Right.
It's just that's what it is. And fear is really debilitating. And it's people have asked me, oh, aren't you afraid? No, actually. It's not some false bravado or whatever, because, and here's where I really sound like a hippie, is when you're doing the right thing, you get protection. And I was a skeptical.
Uh-huh.
I used to be an atheist, but when you do this stuff and you see the serendipity and the doors open and the timing and everything, just look at what's I've done in the last year. Like, no way. I consider myself fairly smart and all. I've got a certain amount of things going for me, but wow, to pull that stuff off, whew,
Sure.
yeah. So join us on the good side.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It's funny. I find that when I talk to a person face to face, and
Hmm.
I try to explain to them, when you look up in the sky and when you see this crap in our
Yeah.
air, and you see that these trails that these planes are leaving behind, it's a straight line at first, but then it just kind of spreads out, and then
Hmm.
it becomes this nasty, hazy, white, milky looking stuff. And then I tell people, I say, that is not natural. How can you look up in the sky and say that's natural? That's not real. It's disgusting. And most of the time, people will tell me, "Wow, you're right." Like, wow, an epiphany. And
Hmm.
and but then I see it like in threads where you see it time and again. Hey, you're just wearing your tinfoil hat, right? It's like they don't
Which
believe
actually
us.
might be a good thing, though. Which is ridiculous. We are absolutely drenched in electromagnetic crap from smart meters and phones and Wi-Fi stuff, and it wouldn't be such a bad idea to protect yourself against some of that stuff. So maybe the tinfoil hat thing was, I don't know. Um, yeah, it's everybody knows the skies look weird. I mean, once it's pointed out to them, anyone who is told, "Hey, look at this," and if they start giving you, um, "Oh, but it's whatever they actually there's a shill. The main shill out there is a guy called Mick West. He runs two websites called Metabunk and Contrail Science, and they have all the talking points there. So if you want to hear what a shill is going to say, just go there and see all their stuff. They're all bogus, and it's mostly logical fallacies and Rule 19. Oh, by the way, Rule 19,
Hmm.
that is the most commonly used shill tactic. And it's actually quite simple. It is ignore presented evidence, demand impossible proof. So you'll see this time and time again, but when you point it out to them and actually quote the actual number of the technique, they get a little bent out of shape. And it's actually on my
Hmm.
website. Go to stopspraying us-sf.com/shill-handbook. That has all their stuff. But yeah, it's so blatantly obvious,
Right.
and everybody who's been formally informed and does nothing about it is guilty as the people doing it. It's
Right.
called uh, it's called
Exactly.
misprision of felony. But it's since it's killing off, like, you know the Italian death rate going up 11%, all that sort of stuff. It's murder, and the misprision of felony, misprision of treason, has no statute of limitations. That follows him to the grave. So I'm not quite sure how you do it, but that's perhaps one technique people can approach. Another one is child endangerment, because there's a bunch of laws about that. And
Actually,
if it's killing
Roddie,
kids,
Patrick, I'm sorry.
Patrick, yeah,
Um, uh, we're gonna go to our first break really quick,
okay,
and then when we come
sure,
back, we'll pick up where you left off. And I want to talk about the shills because
oh yeah,
they need to be stopped. Anyways, this
yeah.
is this is Beyond the Strange. We're talking with Patrick Roddy, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. And welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz, and tonight we're talking with activist and chemtrail researcher Patrick Roddy. And thanks again, Patrick, for being on the show tonight. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. So, what?
Chills.
Yeah, shills.
Okay.
And actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I keep doing that, and I'm sorry. But Les had a question he wanted to bring up.
Uh-huh.
Hi, Patrick. By the way, thank you very much
Hey.
again for being on tonight. And
Oh, thank you.
before I ask you the question, I just wanted to shout out to the few people we've missed so far. Catalina, Paul, Allison, and George. Welcome. Um, and I wanted to do a special shout out for Bev, who's feeling under the weather. Everybody,
Yes,
please send her a little
absolutely.
healing light. She's feeling better, but Let's help her push, get back over the hump. Patrick, you know, first I wanted to say, I used to live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I used to live to a big international airport, and I know they use that as an excuse for all the quote-unquote contrails that they use. But when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, where I live now, I had a much deeper, bluer sky. And I've just noticed in the past couple of years since I've lived here that it used to be a nice deep blue during the afternoon and late afternoon, but now towards the late afternoon, it's becoming a more powder blue because they're starting to hashed up and down all over the sky, and then it changes the color, kind of like what you guys were talking about earlier. If you can explain to the audience members who maybe don't understand how that works, can you explain to everyone, and then maybe get on the shill subject? We won't forget that, Dave.
Okay.
How
Okay.
they do contrails or chemtrails?
Yes.
Okay. So the official name for, well, they call it geoengineering. Geoengineering has two aspects. One is carbon dioxide removal. The other one is solar radiation management. And that is putting nanoparticulate particles into the sky to reflect sunlight back into space to reduce global warming. That's the official line. And anyone who's got half a clue and the slightest bit of honesty who looks up can recognize this. They talk about spraying 500 million tons a year, and the particle size is like less than 5 nanometers across. So you can get a million of them in 1 square millimeter. That's a lot of freaking particles. So it makes the skies brighter. We have a sort of a robin's egg milky blue thing. And if anyone says, "Oh no, that's perfectly normal," I just tell them, go look at your parents' wedding photographs. Look at the color of the sky, dark frickin' blue, unless it was cloudy that day. That has changed. There is no doubt about that. The amount of light reaching the planet's surface has dropped over 20%. How does that happen? The sun's still there. There's an inordinate amount of crap in the sky, and that's what lightens the sky. And it's not just lines. There are these giant frickin' chem bombs. Well, we have to make up our own language because, like I said, I don't get invited to their meetings. There's all kinds of different things. And actually, going back to their BS thing, oh, we're doing this to reduce global warming. If that was the case, they would find the most effective particle and just spray that. But if you watch the trails, there's all kind like this weekend we've got wispy crud. You got the stuff like there'll be a line, and some of them will turn into these little corkscrew things and disappear after a few minutes. Other ones will stay in place and stuff will blow off the side of them. Others get these like big wispy tendrils that will like come off and then curl back. There's just all kinds of stuff. So obviously that is horse pucky.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing is that whenever they have their dog and pony shows and they go out and they say, usually the like green organizations say, "Oh yeah, so we know we're all going to die from global warming and we might just have to do this. We don't want to, but we might have to." They only talk about sulfates. Sulfates are sulfuric acid in public, but their own papers say, yeah, it doesn't work. Sulfates coagulate, they fall out of the sky, they're the wrong shape, don't work. You've got to use nanoparticulate aluminum, barium, strontium, and all this other stuff. And there's over 150 patents saying as much. The only thing we don't have is an official acknowledgement. Yes, we're doing it, but we don't need that because it's going on every freaking day. And it's not just here. This is global. Mm-hmm. Again, that NASA thing, it was like Earth data. It's called NASA Worldview. Just Google that, you'll find it.
Sure.
And Russia sprays, China sprays, Israel sprays, Switzerland, freaking middle of every freaking place sprays. I can't see if they're spraying the poles because it's white there, so you can't really see. There's no contrast. But it's pretty much everywhere, and it's insane. So So this, like, those are the official liars who go out to sell this lie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's for the planet, and besides global warming, that's a whole other thing. Oh, and that's and I
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, do you feel that there's a lot of disinfo that people are throwing out there? Like, one of my questions for you was gonna be, what people say they're contrails.
Hmm.
So, what is the
Which they
difference
are.
between?
They are contrails. A contrail is a condensation trail.
Right. But when people
But
say
nothing.
that, they try to make it sound like it's different from the chemtrails that they're spraying us with.
Well, a contrail needs something to condense to. What we're seeing in the skies are artificially nucleated contrails or chemtrails or whatever name you want to do. But they are coming from planes, and a lot of them, they, like with the aluminum, which is like one of the largest amounts of things that they do spray, that attracts water, and so you have these little tiny little water droplets around this like less than 5 nanometer aluminum oxide hydrophilic particle. And one of the things that does is it prevents rain. And that works because to create a raindrop, you have to start with a little droplet. It'll need a condensation nucleus like dust or cosmic rays or whatever, or aluminum. And when enough water vapor, well, the water vapor is the gas. It's a clear gas, you can't see it. So when you say, oh, that's water vapor, no, it isn't, because you can't see water vapor. Your room is full of water vapor.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see it. Droplet liquid water you can see. So when enough attaches onto this little droplet, it gets big enough that it folds out of suspension and comes down as rain, snow, whatever. But when you're putting 500 million tons times bazillions of, however, like less than 5 nanometer particles you can get in the ton into the sky, there are just so many particles in there. There's not enough water for it to get the particles up to the size where it will come down as rain. And as a result, you'll see every time there's a storm coming into California, they spray the snot out of it, and it acts like a big frickin' sponge. That's why we have a drought here. And actually, governments are speaking up. Iran's speaking up. And actually, last week, Cyprus said, "Oh, hey, stop this!"
I saw that.
Which is awesome. Which is really good. That's a NATO country, and they're saying, "Hey," and because they have Royal Air Force bases there, which they're saying is coming out of it, and the Ministry of Agriculture said, "Hey, stop this! It's ruining our crops." So that's really encouraging. But don't expect Putin, because you got those stories going around, it's like, oh yeah, Putin's against chemtrails. No, he's not. If he was, he'd stop spraying his own people.
Sure.
So it's a massive program, and people say, well, why would the government do? It's not the government. It's above government. Whatever the hell is above government, I don't know. I just call them the scumbags.
I like that.
Yeah, because think what's scum. Right. But what scum is, if you think of a pond with a layer of scum on it, it's this tiny, almost infinitesimally thin layer of crud, which spoils it for everybody else underneath them. But they are vanishingly small. Like David Rothkopf, who was the head of the Kissinger Group, wrote this book back in 2005 called Superclass. And he says the scumbags, which is basically the power elite families and their lieutenants, 6,000 people. That's it. You could fit them in a gym, or a spaceship, which we could send off to Mars or something. But it's just dangerous. You're going to get rid of them. But I think even
Patrick. You know what, Patrick? Even bottom feeders have a purpose.
Yeah, that's the thing. But it is. I think in a way, you got to look at humanity like an ecosystem. I've used this analogy before. And you're going to have a predator class. There's going to be predator, prey, parasite, host. That's just the way things are. And if we got rid of this bunch of predators, perhaps we get another group in. But in a natural system, when one bit gets a little too uppity, there's just a natural balance. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the scumbags have really been acting up recently, and it's sort of like then I sort of popped up, and there's like this guy John Fitzgerald who was awesome. This guy, yeah, when I was in We Are Change,
Hmm.
he a guy came and said, "Oh, hey, there's this guy running for Congress in the East Bay. He wants to run on 9/11 Truth." And I went, "Sweet, I'm in." So
Hmm.
we ran for Congress in California's 11th district, District 7, District 11, twice, and we talked about chemtrails, GMO, vaccine. It was a great excuse to go out and spread the word. Of course, they were never going to let us in while Depot runs elections, but hey,
Right.
it was an
Hmm.
excuse. So, but John Fitzgerald wouldn't have, if 9/11 wouldn't have happened, John Fitzgerald wouldn't have been doing what he's doing. And same with me. If the scumbags were less scummy, I'd be, doing other stuff. But
It
but
has such a
I
ring to it, scumbags. I just
oh yeah, hashtag that, yeah.
exactly the hashtag scumbags. You got
And the
that,
thing is,
Beyonders
like
out
I
there?
said, it's really important not to feel hate towards these people because that's what they use. That's what they feed on. Hate and fear are just useless emotions. I mean, you can feel angry because anger is an appropriate reaction to being attacked like this. And like when I was at the state capitol last time, I compared what's going on to what happened in Dresden in World War II. They Dresden was this beautiful, beautiful city of art in Germany. It was like museums and art galleries and music and all this great stuff, and it was full of refugees, women, old people, prisoners of war. And the RAF came in there and deliberately started a firestorm and cooked. I mean, the entire city went up in one massive fireball, and it was like 400,000 people died. It was just murder. I mean, and those people could see the stuff coming down. But today I was out in the park, and they're out walking their dogs and playing with their kids and stuff. But right above them, there's this atrocity going on, and you'd sort of be thinking, like, you need to be running for a freaking shelter or something. This is such. It is
I
war.
know.
It
I
really
know.
is, and
And
only one side knows it's being fought.
absolutely. And that's why I brought you on, Patrick. Also, is I share your passion. There, people don't understand, and we should be concerned about chemtrails. I don't understand why there are people
Hmm.
out there that are not.
Or Alzheimer's or respiratory failure, whatever. I mean, it's just, aren't you concerned? I mean, they get all bent out of shape. Oh no,
Yeah.
you can't. You know. Oh, oh you know. But this is bad. And but it is such an easy decision. I mean, are you okay with like the murder of innocents, or do you want to you know, scotch the plans of the scumbags? And it's so much fun messing with them. It's hilarious.
I
I
can
don't know
hear
if
the
it did.
enthusiasm in your voice.
Oh, it's so much fun,
I'm glad
especially when
someone's
you
doing
catch
it.
them in lies.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
that's a lot of fun.
So
But we were going to talk about shills.
yeah, shills, absolutely.
Right, so like I said, super, super expensive program. This is more covert than the Manhattan Project. So, like one plane costs $200 million. You can buy a lot of people with low morality for that. So money's no problem. I mean, they freaking print it anyway. And they need for until they let this out in the open, they have to try and keep a lid on it, and hence that's when you get the McWests and the Shills, and they use a handbook, like it's on my website. You can check it out, and they will try to derail conversations. They'll say, "Oh, there's logical fallacies." They'll call you names. They'll just try and make it seem like most people think, oh, this is a fringe idea when it really isn't. I mean,
Hmm.
you can have one show with like 15 sock puppet accounts, all like arguing and forum sliding and stuff, and they're just, again, it's you don't feel antipathy towards them because that's just like herpes and scorpions. It's just a thing of life,
Right.
and they exist, and if you interact with them in anyway, you're effectively signing their timesheets. So when you see a shill on Facebook, for example, you'll go and have a look at his friend list, click on his friends, see if they're shills for the stuff that they're doing, and block every single one of them. If you have a YouTube channel and you see someone who does anything shilly at all, you click on their name, you'll see a G plus symbol. First you block their Google Plus account, then you block their YouTube account and move on. Do not spend any time messing with them. I used to, I'd play with them, like a cat does, like a house cat and like a mouse. Someone for the first time in years comes in, they want to make the most of playing with this mouse. Even though it seems satisfying while you do it, you still need a psychic shower afterwards. Don't do it. Just move on. There's people waiting for you to tell them, hey, do you realize you're getting sprayed?
Right.
And, so, yeah. And they exist. Don't get... And they want to provoke all this angst and anger and whatever, but no, it's just block and move on.
So as far as the agenda goes,
yeah,
who is them?
Okay, so
and why do you think they are spraying us anyway? What are they doing this? I mean,
so
are they killing themselves and while they're doing it?
Yes, less so. They do have countermeasures. When I was at the American Association for the Advancement of Science conference in San Jose in March last year, I think, we talked Max Bliss, who's awesome. He's in France, freaking epic guy. We were talking to this guy out of Tulane in New Orleans, talking about the spraying, and he said, wow, that's really interesting because there are people in my lab who have developed a protein that when ingested will find aluminum, which is already bound to tissue, take it off, and then get it out of your system.
God.
So you can, there like things like cilantro and all these detox things will get rid of like loose bits of aluminum in you, but they actually have stuff which will unaluminify you.
Chelation?
I mean, of course, no, it's beyond chelation. It actually goes in like it'll find aluminum inside cells, inside tissues, and get rid of it and take it out of your body. That exists. We can't get it, but it exists. So there are countermeasures, and of course, I'm sure they, have super filtration because there's no filtration available to us that can stop particles of the size that they're spraying. Like, you can fit, like I said before, you can fit 1 million of these particles, or 10 million of them, in 1 square millimeter, size of a grain of sand. That's first thing. But who are they? So,
right.
Everybody's seen the movie The Godfather, or if they haven't, go watch it. It's a mafia film, and it's about all these mobster families. I think it was in wherever it was, and in this area there were, say, like 10 families. These families all wanted to have all the power because that's what these people are like. Power-hungry people always want more power.
Mm-hmm.
But individually, each family wasn't capable of taking out the other 9, so they had to sit down and kind of agree on how things are going to go. I mean, they still kill each other from time to time, but whatever they decided as a group went for everybody underneath, and people from looking up would see this unified body. They wouldn't see any sort of friction between them. But that model, you'll see it in high school cafeterias. The popular kids will fight amongst themselves to figure out, oh, shall we wear orange this year?
Uh-huh.
But whatever that goes for everybody else, and you'll see it in chicken coops, kindergarten, sports teams, everywhere. It's just the way the world works. So at the global level, whoever are the most powerful individuals, groups, families, whatever, there's going to be more than one, unless there is one. I don't know. Maybe there is. I doubt it. But it has to work in that same model. They have to collaborate, fight amongst each other, but whatever they decide goes for everybody. That's why you'll see smart meters globally and vaccines globally, and spraying globally and getting felt up at airports globally. Um, so who those people are? Some people thought, well, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, those guys might be fronts for some other shady character. Or, I don't care. It doesn't matter if they're space aliens or whatever. That model. It's whoever is the most powerful groups who decided to screw with the planet. Those guys. So they're the scumbags. And the people who work for them, the douchebags, are your Brzezinskis, Kissingers, and so on. And way down below that is the theater that we have as politics, our Obamas and whatnot. They're just wheeled out to make us think that we have some say in our destiny. So
I like that.
Yeah,
Douchebags and scumbags.
Well, the douchebags work for the scumbags. So
absolutely,
it's I'm working on it.
We have a couple people on our panel.
Uh-huh.
I want to reach out to them. One of them is our creative producer, Rick Sennett, and I know he'd like to ask you something. Rick, are you there? Can you?
Well, I don't know if
hey, there he is.
Working.
Welcome, Rick.
Is it working?
Yes.
I hear you.
Awesome, finally. Yeah, new computer, new software. Sorry about that. One of the things I've noticed is some of the proponents for a chemtrail conspiracy. Some of them are so over the top that in a way that instantly turns people off. And first off, I'd like to thank you for the way you present this information, because it's like, okay, this guy I can listen to. Some of the other folks have been on, it's like, and I'm done. and just kill whatever I'm listening to, because they're just so far out there. Are those people plants? Do you believe that they could be presenting factual information, but in a way that's so over the top that turns people off and really kind of is counterproductive?
Well, that's a very old counterintelligence technique. You just go in and say something. They'll join a group, be it against the war or whatever, and then they will just say something really offensive to the greatest number of people and associate everybody else with, oh, he's the. I mean, the example I use is, and I tell people, don't assume that I'm not a Fed, because the only person who really knows it is me and my cats. I think my cats trust me. But you don't really know. And besides, they could somehow figure out a way of getting to me. It could be a threat, or they say every man's got a price. I can't imagine what mine would be. But don't assume that everything, that I will always be good, or like if you hear someone who says a lot of good information and then throws in the moon's made of cheese, if you start repeating the moon is made of cheese, you're going to discredit everything else. A lot of people think that about David Icke. David Icke has a lot of good information, but he says the moon's hollow and the Queen of England's a lizard. That makes him look silly. He also said he was Jesus and all these sort of things. So that is a technique. But I can't say for sure what's in someone else's heart. Well, you sort of can when you get close to them and sort of share their energy and another sort of hippie-ish kind of thing. But there is in the geoengineering chemtrail movement, there is the global warming thing comes up a lot, and because I think that is a very dangerous thing to. I mean, it's divisive, and a lot of people are totally in on global warming. But there's an article on my website you need to read called "Selling Chemtrails." So you go to stopspraying-us-sf/selling-chemtrails. The technocracy thing, which you guys know about, most people don't, is very, very real. They were talking about energy credits back in the 30s as a replacement economic system. if they do not have a widespread belief in carbon dioxide is like an existential threat to the planet, they cannot sell technocracy. It just won't work. And maybe carbon dioxide has some effect. It's negligible. It's a trace gas. It's the sun. The sun is the main driver of whether we get ice ages or not. The Thames froze over in the 1600s, and back in the medieval warm period, there was like grapes growing in Newfoundland. The climate changes always. People say, "Oh, you're a climate change denier." No, it changes all the freaking time. But if you hold to the thing that the carbon produced by humanity is this threat to the planet, you're buying right into a global enslavement. And that sounds extreme, but read this article. Plus, it's the only reason they have for spraying us. The only one. Why else would they do it? Oh, we want to save the polar bears. Yeah, by poisoning them. So it's, it's. I know that
right.
I'm gonna lose friends. Oh no, yeah. But no, that is hogwash. Read that article.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And they're all eugenicists, because when you look at they talk about zero carbon output. Zero? What do you think you're exhaling? Right. Zero? They want to. That basically means murder all life on Earth. Do we really want that? No. And so the eugenics thing, people need to research that too. They have always been going on about this. And actually, earlier you were asking about, why would they want to do this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and let's get more into that after the next break. Sorry to kind of turn that on. But we're talking with Patrick Roddie, and we will be right back. Don't go away. And we are back. This is Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz, and we are speaking with activist and chemtrail researcher Patrick Roddie. Thank you, Patrick, again. What a fascinating conversation we're having tonight. Awesome.
It was funny. We were joking earlier before, and I was asking how long this could go, and I said, well, we could go 7 hours. And seriously, you could, because technocracy alone, the amount of stuff, what I recommend people go and get are 2 books. One is one by Patrick M. Wood called Technocracy Rising, subtitle The Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. And the second one is Between Two Ages, America in the Technotronic Era by Zbigniew Brzezinski, and he basically resurrected the technocracy movement from the 30s, and that's what we're living in right now. Like I said, they always tell you what they're doing, and Brzezinski's laid it all out in that book, so anyone can read that. And if you just Google it, you can find like free PDFs all over the place. But before the break, why are they doing it? Why kill off? Why are they so driven to depopulate? The shills. No. The scumbags. Why the scumbags want to depopulate? Yeah. The scumbags, right? And it's quite simple, really, because if you can control a large number of people through a pyramidal structure of power, just look at the org chart of any corporation. You'll have maybe you can have hundreds of thousands of people working for a corporation, but it all gets decided by up at the boardroom and the chairman. So you can, and then you have interlocking directorships and so on. So you can have a very small number of people controlling entire industries, or religion, academia, medicine. You can get. All you have to do is get your top guys in either, like, most places have like 2 parties. If you just get your guy in one of those 2 parties, doesn't matter who wins the election, you're still controlling it. So with this, you have a small number of people controlling a lot of finance and all this stuff. enormous amount of power, which they've had forever. It's just the way society works. It just has pretty much always been that way. Maybe not in the Golden Age, but that's another story, or the Dark Ages. So what they don't have is numbers. We have numbers. They've never been happy that there's so many of us and so few of them. That's the one thing that makes them nervous. Also being exposed. They hate being exposed. That's why we don't even know who they are, mostly. Maybe they're all Charles Rockefellers, who knows. So they've always had ways of reducing the population. And look through history. Who started all the wars? The scumbags, the kings, the queens, the whatevers.
Right.
You can engineer famines. You can, biological warfare has been around forever. You just always do is like throw a diseased sheep down a well, then you can poison a village. I mean, that stuff's really freaking old. And if you go back to Plato's time in ancient Greece, Plato's Republic, which is pretty much a handbook of how the world's run today, they talk about philosopher kings. That's your technocrats who are running Europe right now, and now they want to have that here with all these public-private partnerships and all that crap. He said, "Oh yeah, and there's too many ancient Greeks. Ancient Greece back then, the world was overpopulated." I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm not going to curse or say anything theological, but they know where they can stick that.
Sure.
So it's old as time. So they've always wanted to lower our numbers. And each time there's a technological advance, they'll use that against us. But again, when they become extra scummy, people just pop up like mushrooms to oppose them. Like the movie Avatar,
Yes.
which is a great movie.
Absolutely.
The story in a nutshell was these miners come to this like beautiful paradise of a planet and just try and rape it for some mineral or something, and the planet collectively shrugs it off because it was thrown out of balance, and both they got set back in shame. And that's what works every time, and there's a lot of people who think, oh no, the New World Order, they're going to come and they're going to do, if the scumbags had had ever been able to exert complete control and complete victory, don't you think they would have done it like 10,000 years ago or something? Because every time there's been an advancement in technology, surely then when they had fire or the arrow or the wheel or the tank or whatever, they could have done it then. No, they cannot do it. It just doesn't work. And they know they're going to fail. But just like don't get angry because a scorpion stings. Scorpions are going to keep on stinging. Scumbags will always be scummy, and don't get bent out of shape about it. But do get angry and push back, because if you don't, they have more respect for us than they do the sports fans.
Oh.
Or the not all sports fans are asleep, but you know what I mean. The Joe Sixpack who gets really bent out of shape. Oh, but political candidate A said that about political candidate B. Oh, Coke is better than Pepsi. It's like, oh, really, dude? That is all freaking theater. It's all theater. Don't waste your time. I find politics as relevant to our daily lives as professional wrestling, and I think professional wrestling is more educational. There's real art and ballet in that, but yes, it's entertaining, but what is more compelling or fascinating than when you actually start fighting the scumbags? They are so much more interesting than anything you're going to get come out of some scriptwriter's head. It is really, really cool. So I'm having a ball. And people say, no, you really? Yeah, I am. It's awesome. And
we're glad you're having fun doing it. Because
well, I wouldn't do it otherwise. Well, I'd do it, but I wouldn't do it so enthusiastically, I suppose.
Yeah, no. It's definitely a different approach. And having fun and exposing the truth, hey, it goes hand in hand. So
Oh, I gotta bring up my BFF though,
sure.
Ken Caldera. Oh,
Okay.
so Ken Caldera is this character. I'll try not to be too mean to him, and he's this sort of very unhappy little insecure man whose job it is. He's one of the two guys they wheel out to say, "Oh, we're all going to die from global warming. We might have to spray this crud in the air to save us from that," and blah blah blah. So back in 2006, I think, there's this Pacifica radio host called Jeff Brady who was working out of New York, and Pacifica is like a real progressive radio station, like the one here in Berkeley. They have Guns and Butter. They talk about 9/11, all kinds of great stuff. So Jeff Brady was at this conference where Ken Caldera was, and he went up to talk to him afterwards. And I think Caldera thought, when he heard public radio, he thought, NPR, controlled opposition, I can speak freely to this person. He said that when he worked at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories, where they make frickin' nuclear bombs, he was in a meeting discussing how to use natural systems as military weapons, could use the climate as a weapon. And they thought, direct quote, you could imagine putting pathogens in a cloud, let the cloud rain down on your enemy, and do chemical and germ warfare in this kind of way. And this could work on an area the size of the former Soviet Union. Oh, in 2011, I think, they had this bogus debate in Berkeley at this green place where you had Ken Caldera saying, we really don't want to do this, but we might have to. And the opposing argument was, we really, 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 really don't want to do this, but we might have to. It's a real sort of head slapper. So afterwards, first I nail him on the global warming scam about ClimateGate and Pachari admitting there hasn't been any warming since '98 and so on. But then I said, oh yeah, one more thing. Oh, by the way, I used to be a Mac repair guy, so I like quoting Steve Jobs. Oh yeah, one more thing. You're on record as proposing putting pathogens in the cloud to do chemical and germ warfare on your enemies. And he says, oh, that's not true. I have audio. Show it to me. Oh, it's all right. I got on my iPhone. And I played it in his ear, and it was hilarious. He tried to dig his way out of that badly, and I've nailed him on it I think at least three other times on camera. And the last time he actually spoke to me, he told me some family unfriendly word, shut the blank up, and scurried away. And this Saturday, actually Friday coming, he'll be in Santa Cruz. So hey, Ken,
there you go.
Looking forward to saying hi again. Have you read my paper yet? Yeah.
Yeah.
Again.
Speaking about talking to, I don't know, three-letter government agencies.
Yeah, they're all three-letter agencies. NASA's a three-letter agency.
Exactly.
NOAA's a three-letter agency. Yeah.
Exactly. How did it go with the EPA after you spoke to them?
Oh, they said, of course they were never going to admit anything, and they never will. It's still covert. They can't. But we can still mess with them, and that was more of a. Raising public awareness, I think, is job 1, 2, and 3. We have to raise the amount of people who know about this. And it's actually not that hard, because, just talk to someone on the bus and they go, hey, yeah, I know, I was thinking that too. Others will say, and I'm not sure if I disagree with them, that, you have to go through the channels, do petitions, legal stuff, try and get laws in place, and all those sort of things. But if that's what you're good at, do that. Whatever you're good at, do that. Whatever you have in you, throw everything you have against this. This is so much bigger than wiretapping or all the other stuff that's going on in the world. This is killing everything. It's just that's not about, like, if you like I said, like if your thing is knitting, somehow use knitting towards this. Doesn't matter. My skill set is about for communication research and so on, so that's what I'm doing. But if you're a government wonk and know how to get the force like city councils to address stuff and not just ignore it in public discussion,
Right.
do that. I mean, take them to small claims court, any freaking thing. But do something, because your grandchildren, if you have any, will not look. What sort of example should you set? Really, it's a cliche, and it's from I think it's from. Actually, I love that movie, Starship Troopers. We're in it for the species,
Right.
We are, though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good against evil. And do you want to be evil? No, they suck. And they're miserable. Look at them. Have you ever seen any of them smile? They're not. I mean, it's and I'm having a ball. And when you do this, you find other people who have that same great friggin' harmonic awesomeness about them, and the world just treats you better when you're doing the right thing. And that sounds like a hippie thing, but there's every action has an equal opposite reaction. They call it karma. In Burning Man, they call it the playa provides. But it's very real. I was a skeptic. I used to be an atheist, but this stuff there's something to it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you want to call it God or the universe or whatever, but
Something bigger.
it's the right side to be on.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I believe Les in our panel, he has another question he'd like to ask you. Go ahead, Les.
Okay, cool. Go.
Hello again, Patrick. I just wanted to ask real quick. I mean, do you have people, coming to you? Are you yourself a whistleblower, or do you have whistleblowers coming to you with this information?
It's in the freaking patent office. Everything that I do, I just, like that paper that I wrote, the CDC statistics are open. I did my own water analysis. The papers about the toxicity of aluminum and barium, that's long established. I just put, hey, this back, boom, there, done. I don't think we're going to get whistleblowers, not until they're ready to actually come out and say, oh, hey, we did it. And they might come out and do it in the form of a whistleblower, like a Snowden kind of thing. I'm not sure what they're thinking, but they have to. Actually, one of their rules, this is an interesting thing which I find odd, is they have this rule called revelation of method, where they always have to tell you what they're going to do ahead of time. And we've seen, it's partly it's a legalistic thing, because if we're having a conversation and I say, is in a matter of argument, like, oh, if I was going to, I don't know, steal your wallet, and you're going, well, that's an interesting thing, and actually steal your wallet, I said, no, hey, I already said, and you didn't say no. Hey, but I thought we were just talking about this as something theoretical. No, they put stuff in movies. So there's been stuff about the spraying in movies and cartoons and stuff, but I was thinking, am I inadvertently fulfilling that role of telling people that they should do? But I'm in my way of running around banging on people's doors about the apartment fire in the basement. Do I fill that role? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's got to stop.
So do you think?
I straight off the question. Oh yeah, the whistleblower thing. So people, when I talk about the covert thing, I say, well, they kept the Manhattan Project secret for all the time it needed to, and there was 100,000 scientists, and they said, oh, but back then they didn't have Twitter and Facebook and stuff. But Twitter and Facebook actually makes it harder, because it's much easier to track everybody who has clearance, who isn't a no, and can find out, or anyone who loads a plane, or isn't, they are watched very freaking closely.
Do you think it's military?
It's everything. It's beyond military.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the military is part of it, but it's pretty compartmentalized. But I know someone whose brother works at Boeing, and they all know about it. They would talk about it, but they know about it. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's a vast process. So I assume everyone on Airbus and Air Force, they all know about it. But for anyone actually speaking out, they must have made some very significant examples of people who
I see.
dared speak out. I think they might have,
It's
I
not
don't know
it's
what,
not the
but
it's not the threat to the person a lot of times. I think it's the threat to the families more than likely.
yeah, for the people I love. Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
so
And
however,
Patrick,
however they do it, I don't know.
Patrick, I am getting yelled at from Spreaker chat. They they are dying to know, Allison and everyone else. They want to know about Margellans.
I don't
And
know enough about that,
okay, that's cool.
unfortunately.
But I did. I don't know if you saw it, but I guess singer or songwriter Joni Mitchell.
Oh yeah,
She
she
had
says she has it.
Yeah, she
I
came out
well, I think
and go ahead, please.
the one thing I'd recommend people watch is there's this awesome woman called Sophia Smallstorm, and if you can find it on YouTube, it's called something pseudo life, PSEUDO life. Watch that. That is chilling. They have been doing some very advanced stuff in nanotech, and the Morgellons is believed to be a nanotech kind of thing. And I just haven't researched that enough. And I'm not saying it does or doesn't, but I know that they're working on this weird nanotech stuff, and you watch the stuff coming down, it's weird and creepy, and God knows what they're spraying. And I assume there's nanotech stuff in there. And maybe you can call all the weird nanotech stuff collectively Morgellons, but I really can't say one way or the other.
But it seems like, along with the chemtrail spraying, that a lot of these diseases that weren't
brand new.
Exactly, they weren't in existence before we started seeing this crap.
Oh yeah, and like suddenly, like over a vast area, suddenly everyone comes down with the flu. Like there was an example. I mean, this is something a little less, well, a bit more blatant. I was walking home one night, and it was about 12 or 1 or something, and I was about 6 blocks from my house, and I smelled this solvent, like an organic solvent, like a benzene or some sort of like nail polish remover, or like a paint, like a car paint spray kind of thing. I thought, well, that's weird. There's no car places, and why would anything be open past midnight? But as I walked home, the amount of smell stayed constant for blocks and blocks and blocks. And when I got home, went on because I admin on there's a Bay Area chemtrail group. I said, hey, does anyone else smell this crap? And I got reports like from the Central Valley up to Eureka, like they were dropping this weird solventy stuff. And I had there was I forget the show I was on before, and well, Russ Tanner has really really good sense of smell, so he can smell stuff better than I can. But they did, like Max Bliss was saying, how some of the more exotic stuff that they actually encapsulated in, was it benzene, or anyway, it's one of the acetone, perhaps acetone. So yeah, they're spraying all kinds of stuff. They're talking about like white blood cells, these weird nanos. There's all kinds of stuff. So I absolutely am not, I mean, I just haven't done enough research on Morgellons. And another thought that I had about Morgellons is like the people who like everyone's breathing it, so why doesn't everybody have Morgellons? I think certain people, their body reacts to it and tries to push it out, so they see these weird, like, creepy fibers coming through their skin. And I think with other people, it just stays inside and we don't know about it. But like I said, I don't know one way or the other. I'm not the guy. Cliff Carnicom, he's the Morgellons guy. He's the expert, not me.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry.
no, that's perfect.
What was the name of the movie again, Patrick?
Oh, it's called From Pseudo Life to something. Her name is Sophia, Sofia Smallstorm, Smallstorm. So if you do Sophia Smallstorm pseudo, you'll find it on YouTube. It's From Pseudo Life to something. Yeah. That's really creepy. It's like, yay! What the hell? Yeah. But again, we're dealing with like syphilitic inbred sociopaths, so yeah, that's what you're gonna get. So yeah.
Right. No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So why do you think the government is authorizing these programmings? these programs?
Well, better question is, why does the government? Well, what would motivate the government to go against the wishes of something much more powerful than them? Like the last guy who went off script was JFK.
Right.
Look what happened to him.
Mm.
You know, and you get like there's ways of getting rid of people. Anyone who doesn't quite play along, you know, bad things happen. So yeah, they'll have all it would take is a phone call, and also you'll find that the vast majority of people who actually get into political power are usually it's like you know, the narcissistic side of sociopathy. And the reason there's so much kiddie fiddling is that is also used as a control mechanism, because if you're going to abuse a 4-year-old, you're A-okay for the job because you have no empathy. But also, they'll have a recording of you, you know, the cliche is like found with a live boy or a dead girl. They have that on everybody who is in power. I mean, you just look at they all. I mean, seriously, the stuff that's come out hinted about the Clintons, like, you know, the conspiracy of silence, like George Bush Senior, like had, you know, excuse me, like underage boys in the White House. You got Mena, Arkansas, where the Clintons. There's all this, yeah. You don't get anywhere unless you are depraved and they have it on tape. So you never go off script. So it's, yeah, sadly, we are run by sociopaths, and don't expect anyone else to do anything for you. The cavalry is not coming. You're the cavalry. You know, it's. We're conditioned to always look to a hero. Oh, someone that's going to come at the end of 90 minutes and save the day. No, you're it. And you'll be surprised what you can do. I mean, you know, I think I got stuff going for me. I got the accent and the beard and stuff, you know. But you'll get help, and it is so much fun. And yeah, so do it.
That's good to know. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take our last break, and when we come back, there is a question that our creative producer Rick Sennett wanted to ask, but we definitely got to go to our last break. Man, time's going by fast.
That was quick.
Oh, wow. But we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. Patrick Roddie, everyone. And welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange, and we are speaking with Patrick Roddie. And before we get back to our convo, which has been a great conversation tonight, thanks again, Patrick. Les, why don't you say hello to the last of our people that showing up?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it has been, God, this show has gone by really fast, hasn't it, Dave? It's too much good stuff, man. Wanted to say hello to Kat, Barrett, Fran, Gabriel, and hello, Akaro. Nice to see you again.
We love our Beyonders. Thank you guys for showing up. Please. And so last we were talking about
There's Morgellons before.
Morgellons, right? But I believe Rick wanted us to ask you something. Rick, are you there?
Yeah. What I was wondering is basically who are the top 5 people or organizations we should keep an eye on. I mean, automatically my first instinct, because I'm a little biased on this, is the Koch brothers. They have their hands in pretty much everything, so it seems to be a natural go-to. Who should we keep an eye on?
Raytheon, the MITRE Corporation, the Round Table groups. You want some more?
Yeah, well, I mean, as many as you got, or we have time for, or you have energy for.
Well, okay. So if you look into the Round Table groups, there's a book that was written back in the 60s or 70s called Tragedy and Hope, written by Carol Quigley, who was a professor at Georgetown who taught Bill Clinton, and he was the historian for the CFR. So the CFR is one of the roundtable groups which has ties to the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London, which was set up by Cecil Rhodes and the Rockefellers and so on, and they control a lot. And out of them came the Club of Rome, who said, in searching for a common enemy to unite us, we thought global warming would fit the bill. And the Trilateral Commission, which is the extension of technocracy. Yeah, the scumbags. That is, you're getting really close to them. Like every president we've had since Wilson's been a member of this, and all the prime ministers of England. This is a global thing. And that's pretty close to the scumbags, but I see them as an administrative arm that works for the scumbags. So who the scumbags are is up above them. Koch brothers, the Warren Buffetts and the Gates and that's way down lower middle management. So they are not the deciders. I mean, they'll play their role, but it's it's way up there. I mean, how could the Koch brothers have the influence to spray Moscow?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something up a couple notches, and I mean, some people even think it's like it's some sort of some ET or transdimensional or whatever it is.
Yes.
It's in that model of the most powerful. Perhaps, who knows? It doesn't matter. It's whoever are the most powerful groups on the planet do this sort of Godfather kind of sitting around a table kind of dealy thing, and that is the enemy.
Well, it's definitely a rabbit hole as far as Illuminati or NWO, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they have all kinds of names.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a rabbit hole. So, on any given day, how many chemtrail spraying aircrafts are active worldwide?
Good Lord. They just do a number. Well, the thing is, first of all, you have all commercial traffic. So they can be activated at any time, plus all the other stuff. And I think a lot of the other stuff is drone, because how do they have that many pilots? And the good thing about drones is they don't have pilots who get drunk and sleep, and blab to their mistresses. So and the thing is, with the commercial fleet, like Asiana just flew over yesterday. I've got them on, caught them in the act. Oh, yeah. By the way, here are some technical tips, which for people who want to start documenting this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can do time lapses with your iPhone. If you can get like a wide angle adapter and thing, if you go into the Photos app, there's a time lapse thing. You can do time lapses with your phone. If you can spare like $300, there's a Canon Vixia Mini. That's the one I use for mine. And if you want to get close-ups on the planes, there's a Nikon Coolpix P900. You can pretty much read see the nose hairs on the pilots with them. So those are the three things. Google is your friend. There's an app called Flight Radar 24 where you can actually point it at a plane. It'll tell you what the flight is. But the main thing is talk to people. That's the most important thing, because until we have this massive awareness, I mean, the people in Malta are pissed. And you got the agriculture minister actually saying, oh, hey, stop frickin' spraying us. So, and I've used the analogy of GMOs before, because with the GMO movement, when people first started talking about, maybe these might need a couple more long-term human health tests. No, you're crazy. And they got shouted down by the shills, who pretend to be the majority, but screw those guys. But over time, you got like Trader Joe's here in California. They wouldn't stock any GMO. And you got Uruguay and Portugal. I mean, there's a lot of places that are just like pushing back. We to really effectively push back, we need numbers. Yeah. And not necessarily a whole lot. You need more people who are just like, screw this, and we're going to just throw themselves into the machinery. And to me, I'm biased because I'm doing this stuff, but I see there's no issue more important than life on Earth.
Right.
And good versus evil, which this is the poster child for.
Where is the data coming from? I mean, as
What
far
data?
as the numbers, like, um, of the emissions that are in the air or in our drinking water or
I
even
do them.
in our ice.
I
You
do
know,
it. I
okay.
do it. You do it yourself. You got to
Uh-huh.
find. I'd recommend when people shop around for labs, find multiple labs, divide your rain sample into two, send them to separate places, double blind, so neither of them know whichever one is, so you can find out if anyone's fiddling the numbers.
Right.
Yeah, the EPA stopped testing for aluminum in the air back in 2002, conveniently. So they're not. They obviously know how much is in there because they're,
Mm-hmm.
they're a three-generation. They're just as guilty as people doing this
They're
frying.
staying quiet, is what they're doing.
Of course they are. It's a covert program. No one was blabbing about the atom bomb before that got dropped. It's the same
Good
thing. No
point.
one will. So why expect it? But everybody who's taking a paycheck to hide this thing deserves to have their feet, pushed into the fire, or made feel uncomfortable. Of course, I always say, back as I said earlier in the thing, you don't want to have hate and fear, because that's more damaging to you. Hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other guy to get sick. But violence is also playing into their hands. They would love to paint us as violent extremists. That would be awesome for them. Like, oh, hey, oh, you're not one of those whatevers. So, but you don't need violence. Love is more powerful than violence. I know it sounds, again, hippie-ish, but, that's what we got to use.
Well, we know now. We know what they were really fighting for. I mean, besides peace and love, I mean, we want to know the truth. We want information.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And puppies and ice cream, just like nice. Yeah, that's what I mean.
And
what
pot,
do they get?
and
Like,
pot,
yeah, and pot. There's lots of
pot,
awesome stuff, and yeah. So, but it's fun, and it's fun. I enjoy doing it, and I'm lucky. I just happen to have everything that I need to do this, and I think that's more than serendipity. The skill set that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Any one thing that I skipped in my life before I'd have a massive blind spot and like stumble. But it just seems like, wow, how did that all come together? But I'm glad.
And before you go, I definitely want to open up the phone lines. If anyone wants to ask, I mean, Patrick, is that okay with you?
Oh, totally, yeah, anything.
If anyone wants to ask Patrick anything, please call 707-200-3520. And yeah, we definitely got a great convo. Oh my gosh, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on. It's been so, if anything, just educational, and the passion. I feel the passion so much. It's what I feel every day too when I look up in the sky. See, personally, I didn't notice until probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And I told myself that didn't look right. How long has this been going on? I mean, how did you get convinced that chemtrails are real?
Well, it's pretty self-evident, really.
Right.
I got a physics background. I know what condensation is, and that is pretty like. Hang on, that ain't right. Actually, there were other people though, who, when they were watching 9/11 get demolished, the towers getting demolished, they could see it as a demolition right away. They go, oh whoa! Props to them. But for me, I mean, my attention wasn't drawn to it until I was involved with the other stuff through the We Are Changey kind of things about wars and wiretapping and vaccines and all 9/11 and Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was all part of that whole thing.
Oops. Hang on one second, caller.
Hello?
Yep. Hang on just one second.
Okay.
Okay, you're on with Patrick. Patrick, I'm sorry about that. I almost did a faux pas.
Oh, Patrick? Sorry. Hello?
Are you
Still
still there?
there?
Okay. Yeah, caller. Who is this?
I,
Hello?
Oh,
hey,
Hey, who's this?
It's Gene.
It sounds like
Gene.
Gene. Gene, what's up, brother?
well, guess what? That's who it is.
Hey, there he is. What's up, Gunny?
Yeah. Yo, LJ3.
Yo,
I think
brother.
you're trying
How
to-
you doing, Gene?
Doing okay. Look,
Hey, Gene. Do you have a
there-
question for Patrick?
well, there's a base here where I live that they converted from A-10 fighter planes to drones.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to know a couple people out there, and they are definitely spraying chem from those drones.
oh, they got to come from somewhere. Yeah.
It's a central location in the United States, Arkansas, which is, south central.
Mhm.
And they cover a huge area. They cover Texas. They cover all the way up to Iowa, east to Tennessee. I've got an inside shot on little information that somebody that works for the scumbags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be so many people directly involved. I mean, the scale of it is giant. I mean, I don't know specifically any places or contractors, but I know to look. I mean, there are certain companies, or I mean, Mitre Corporation and Raytheon obviously being the two big ones, but Applied Materials, NanoAmmer, all these nanotech companies, they gotta be. I mean, what do they make? What are they? How are they keeping the lights on? I just don't know for sure. I don't have clearance, but I think whoever you're getting information from, they need to watch their backs. I mean, they will know the sort of threat they're under because they have not yet allowed this to come out yet. And when you look at the Snowden stuff, Snowden was freaking CIA. He said as much. So I think that was the time. Oh yeah, we're gonna put this out. Yeah, we've been doing this, and I don't see them ready to do this quite yet. And if someone wants to be a whistleblower, be very, very careful.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. Be very, very careful.
I saw an article that supposedly came from Snowden today, and Snowden wants to come back and go to trial, and and have a real trial. Well, the government's not going to let him do that because they don't want him telling everything he knows. I believe he knows a lot more that hasn't been revealed.
I'm not entirely sure about the Snowden thing. I think he's there to perform the job of telling us. Once they've already built the infrastructure for spying on everything that we do, and get us also completely dependent on our iDevices, that when they say, aha, by using your iDevices, you're getting listened to, no one's going to say, okay, I'm not going to use my phone anymore. Then what do you do? So I think it was time for the government to do, or when I say the government, the powers that be, to release that information. And I think Snowden was used willingly or unwittingly, I don't know. But I don't see the same thing happening for chemtrails just yet. Maybe it'll happen, but it's being done in plain sight all over the damn place. So we can do our own collection of evidence. Like that camera, the Nikon P900. Seriously, you can read stuff on the wings of planes flying over 36,000 feet, handheld. It's awesome. I mean, the military, the technological surveillance industrial complex has given us some really cool camera toys. That's why cameras, the phones in your cameras are so super advanced. They didn't do that because they wanted to sell iPhone. It's because they want to spy on us. But we got to use the tools that exist against them. I know Facebook is the FBI has an office there. I know what it is, but I'll use that to get the word out. Same with YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, who owns a killer robot company.
That's
You
right.
know, so
And drones coming soon.
and drones, yeah. So screw those guys. But you can use whatever you have at hand. Use it. Just because it happens to belong to the other side, screw them. You know, you can use their tools against them.
Hey, Gunny.
I'd just like to say thanks to Patrick for his very informative appearance on
Hey,
Beyond
thank you.
Strange. And I'd like to thank all the Beyonders for listening and say hello to everybody in Spreaker Chat.
Absolutely.
Right on, brother.
All right, good night all, and good night LJ3.
Right
Good night,
on,
Gunny.
man.
All right.
Thanks, Gunny.
Good night.
Good night, Gunny.
That was our brother, Gunny.
All right.
Gene Vital.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a special shout out to Myra, who just showed up for the first time in our Spreaker chat. Hi, Myra. Good to see you, sweetheart.
What's up, Myra? Thanks for joining us. First time listener in Spreaker. So, Patrick, why don't mainstream people notice chemtrails?
Oh,
Like-
they all know. They all know about it.
But I mean, you know, the talking heads, you know, the news. I mean, they will not acknowledge it.
Nor would they acknowledge the Manhattan Project before the bomb was dropped in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
It was also covert. Duh. Of course they're not going to talk about it. Especially meteorologists who are actual meteorologists who actually know what a cloud is made of.
Right.
You know, really, like 3-year-olds look up and say, "Hey, mommy, why the sky looking so creepy today?" You know, it's yeah, it's not hard to figure out.
But are they being suppressed? Do you think they're being
Of course
suppressed
they are. Of course they
by
are.
the
'Cause
scumbags, right?
I know people who have called into congressional offices and gotten some intern, and the intern will be like, "Oh my God, that's terrible. Oh yeah, I'll be right on it." And then nothing will happen. They'll call back and they'll say, "No, that is water vapor from a," you know, they
Right, exactly.
They'll get the talk and zipper nothing. So yeah, this is so. Of course they're aware. I mean, people are calling up like officials all over the damn place. Like, what the hell's going on? So it's very, you know, they all know. Of course you do, and they are complicit and they are accessories to murder for doing so.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't just say, "Oh, I'm just doing my job." But on the other hand, though, I mean, I want to say. I was just saying just before the last caller, like me being a photographer, I look back at photographs before I was aware of this stuff, and I can see chemtrails in them. Like, wow, I didn't, you know.
Oh.
So you shouldn't beat up on people who don't know about it yet. And also, it's because it does open up all this really dark and evil stuff. Because remember the time, whatever it was that made you become awake, was it 9/11, was it this, was it that? That was traumatic. And you had to go through all the stages of grief, the denial, the bargaining, the whatever, before you get to the acceptance. And that is painful. You are walking through fire to do that. So whenever you are just chatting, I'm just chatting away like I do now. I'm having a great old time. And I sometimes forget that what I'm asking these people who don't know about it is to walk across this fire. Then they can see this like pain and suffering between them and the truth, and they go. A lot of them think, "I just don't want to know," because they can see that, and I respect that. Everyone's different, because we don't need everybody. We just need a determined minority, because we're ruled by a determined minority, like the scumbags. There's 6,000 of them. Screw those guys. So, but more people is better.
Yeah,
so talk to people on the bus, or wherever you run into people, and you don't have to, and don't do it when you've just woken up because you're all stressed out and blah. Then they'll get like, "Oh geez, I talked to this like really scary person on the bus with her hair all wild and stuff." And like, what the hell?
Yeah, that probably won't go over well too well.
Yeah, fully get through all that, the stages of grief. But while you're doing it, research, and don't even research everything. And do one thing and do it well, and let that be your specialty. And so when you Like if you're doing this thing, you'll figure out one thing. It might be the rain or the barium or the health or the whatever. Study the disinformation BS that's being put out for yourself. Find out why that's a pack of lies and be able to back up everything that you say. And only then, when you are free of fear and hate, you go and start chatting with people. It's fun.
Okay. We got time for a couple more questions in our panel, and our brother Gigi Rabbit would love to ask you a question. Go ahead, Gigi.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, Patrick. Well,
Hey.
I've noticed several times this has happened. Actually, one of which was about a week ago in Oceanside. But I can't help but notice that there's been several situations where all of a sudden chemtrails are popping up, like left, right, left, center, all around. And just after that, I'm talking a period of maybe 30 minutes. After that, all of a sudden, the weather changes drastically for the worse. Like always some kind of rain or thunder, or in Oceanside last week, it was just fog. I mean, like right after that happened, all of a sudden the city was engulfed in just a massive fog for the entire day. And I just can't help but notice that all of a sudden a bunch of chemtrails pop up right before that happens. So I guess I'm asking, have you come across anything that suggests that there might be something behind that as far as the chemtrails goes, or what do you think is going on there?
Like the first freaking patent from 1920 describes just that. It's very old technology, very old technology.
I knew it.
But one thing that we did forget to mention is the electromagnetic aspect of this, which you can't see it. We can see the planes, but the electromagnetic stuff you'll see a lot of times when you see ripples in the clouds. Not always, because sometimes when something's going over like a mountain or something, it's going to cause a ripple. But you can see this stuff from space, these giant grid patterns, which are like popcorn and clouds, all this sort of stuff. They use ionospheric heaters. Everybody knows about HAARP. But what I noticed some years ago, I'll be home, and then I'll find myself being really fatigued and just, oh my God, I just want to go to sleep. I'll look out the window, and they've just started spraying. So the stuff hadn't had a chance to come down 30,000 feet for me to breathe in, but I felt like crappy immediately. That, to me, I think that feeling of exhaustion and drain was turning on whatever RF transmitters that they have. And there's a bunch of them. You got Gwen, HAARP, Nextra, all these VLF, and there's tons of them all over the damn place. So that is definitely, and that's in all the papers. There's in the Eastland patent. There's tons of stuff on that, and you can nucleate by charging particles, positive or negatively, and there's all kinds, And it's not just about weather control. That's the other thing. A lot of people.
Oh, we didn't get into that yet.
I know, because it certainly is weather control, but there's a lot of people say, oh, don't use the word chemtrails, because if you look up chemtrails on Wikipedia, it says they don't exist, and you'll look stupid. Yeah, they say the Building 7 collapses from freaking office fires, so yeah, Wikipedia is really a paragon of truth, so that's hogwash. If we only call it geoengineering, we are restricting the discussion to the effect on the climate. Whereas if you look at the stuff they're spraying, it definitely has a biological effect. Is it bioengineering? Is it whatever? It's more than just screwing with the weather. So do not be pressured into just calling it geoengineering or climate engineering. It's a lot more than that. It's murder.
Fran, I see you in there. Hold on one second, Gigi. Fran, I see you in there. Just hold on. Gigi,
okay.
I want to finish up your question, and then we're going to go to Rick after that. Patrick, do you mind if we go over just a few minutes?
Oh, sure, yeah, that's cool, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, go ahead and finish up, Gigi.
Well, I was going to say, there certainly seems to be, as soon as you think of chemtrails, there's all these theories and ideas, and they all seem to be pretty negative for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, do you see, once in a while you hear somebody talk about that they're actually doing it for a positive reason for the general...
Yeah. Oh, I've heard that.
I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, but
to save the polar bears or something, yeah.
Is there any logical evidence that could point to that kind of conclusion that's saying that there's actually a positive side to it? Have you come across anything that?
No, here's the argument that you'll find from the people who talk about, oh, carbon, chemtrails are bad, but no, global warming is bad, but chemtrails are making it worse. Because the scumbags say chemtrails are bad. No, we're all going to die from global warming, and chemtrails might be the only thing that can save us. Some people on the other side say, oh, we're all going to die from global warming, but chemtrails are making it worse. You'll hear, and I've actually heard on the street this argument that, oh, but if we stopped spraying, suddenly, the temperature would spike and we'd all die from global warming. Hogwash. It's horse pucky, and I almost let F-bomb go out, but it's hard not to keep my mouth clean for this stuff. But yeah, poisoning the planet is a bad idea. That is pretty tautologically freaking simple, What good? I mean, I'm sure they'll have their justification, oh, good, there's too many people or whatever the hell. But no, it's all kinds of wrong. It's absolutely morally indefensible. And anyone who helps conceal it or whatever deserves to be breaking rocks in Rikers Island.
Agreed.
Maybe in Gen Pop, I'm thinking. But yeah, they do not deserve our sympathy.
No, not at all.
And all of them should be held account. But they should get a fair trial. They shouldn't use the sort of the extraordinary rendition, all that sort of crap. But since we are really nice people, we're going to make sure they get all their vaccinations and have all the GMO food they want.
Oh, nice.
Should we give immunity to the ones that come over?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Should we give immunity to the ones that that come over to our side?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like we can. I mean, I think. Because there's so many, we might go with like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission like they did in South Africa. That might be a good thing. But I think that people should pay for this. And they know who they are and they're listening. And hello, Mick. Well, he's just some little weenie operative, but it's. Yeah, well, if you go and like murder an old lady for her pension, don't you think you should have some consequences? It's the same thing,
Agreed.
It's or like sort of like suffocate a child willingly for a slightly larger flat screen TV.
Yep.
It's so clearly right and wrong, good versus evil. There's no such thing as shades of grey in this thing. And
Jesus, thank you for your question. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. I just want to get to Rick's question. He's been waiting patiently, and we got Fran on the phone line also.
Okay.
So please, Mr. Sennett, take it away.
Oh. Well, one's an observation. About 20 years ago, I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, from Northern California. And one of the things I noticed was this odd grid pattern, a perfect grid pattern in the sky as I'm driving out in the desert. And I'm like, well, that's really freaking weird. Maybe it's just Nellis Air Force Base, doing test runs or whatever. Or maybe something coming out Area 51, because Area 51's right there, a stone's throw away.
Oh.
But during that time frame in Las Vegas is when we had heavy monsoon season. We were that's when we hit our 100-year storm. The underpass over on Charleston Boulevard was completely flooded. I mean, it was basically a swimming pool. In fact, kids were swimming in it. And then as time goes on, I noticed fewer and fewer grid patterns in the sky, and all of a sudden we have a drought. Lake Mead goes to an all-time low. In fact, the town that was in that valley that they used to create Lake Mead, archaeology students, I should say, from UNLV actually got to go out to the dried out part of the lake bed and go through the town that was flooded.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from monsoons that were literally flooding out the entire town to dry as a bone and in severe danger of losing our water supply. Now, one of the things I've noticed was I don't normally live around military facilities, so I thought maybe that was a military facility. Do they base everything for the chemtrails out of military facilities, or is just anywhere they have a runway?
Well, I think both, because, like I said, the close-ups I get on regular scheduled passenger jets flying right over my apartment and spraying are from Asiana, Korean Airlines, and they have flight numbers on flight radar, and they leave LAX and they fly to Seoul or wherever. So those guys are coming in and out of airports. When you get the super heavy spray days and the sky turns to complete garbage fast, and when you try and get flight radar on those, they don't show up. Either they don't have their transponder or their military or whatever. Those drones, I don't know where they're based. That's, I think, which I think that might be something for someone to, not me, or that needs to be looked into, and it'd be good to find out where this stuff's coming from, who's supplying it. But I back away from like storming the base. I think standing outside the base saying, "Hey, we know what you're doing," that would be good. But anything getting close to violence, I know, yes, if you're attacked, you can defend yourself. That's like, if I punch you in the face, you can punch back, or worse, right? And in a way, you could say, well, yeah, they're killing people, so, shouldn't we do that? No. Then we're painted as violent extremists and we lose it. So we got to do this peacefully somehow, as long as we possibly can. And but also, another thing I should mention is grid patterns aren't so common now. Because if you look on the satellite imagery, yeah, you'll see the lines, but what you'll see are these giant freaking plumes. I'm not sure if they're shit-based or whatever, but they're massive. There's much more volume of crud coming from, I don't know what, but it's not your parents, like grid pattern trails. They're going away from that. So I shouldn't use that when you're trying to explain the screwing with the weather stuff, and you just talk about the lines. That is because there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's hard to. I mean, I've been watching it long enough, and I can tell what's fake and what isn't. It makes it a little more difficult, and they're trying to conceal it as well, clearly. So I don't know.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate that question. Fran, you've been waiting so patiently. Thank you for calling in. Say hi to Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. This is
Hey, Fran
from Arizona.
Hey there. You guys get nailed. Hey. It's bad there, man.
I know.
Yeah.
That's one of my questions, and it sort of ties in with Rick's. I was living in Las Vegas back in '96 and '97, and we moved over to Pahrump for a short time.
Oh, yeah, I know Pahrump. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was still working in Las Vegas, but my job was outside a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was getting sick. I would leave work and I wouldn't feel well, and I'd drive up over Spring Mountain, and before I could even reach the summit, I had to pull over and vomit, and then get back in the car and drive home. And at the same time, I was having a real severe metallic taste in my mouth. Yeah. But we were getting bombed with chemtrails. I had dozens of photos that were just crazy. And I was wondering, is this a typical sickness from chemtrails?
Well, remember what I said earlier. I'm not sure if you've heard it, but the death rate in Italy has gone up 11% in 1 year. Think about that. I mean, and they were saying, I mean, if you go on my Facebook thing, you can find it there, the article. they're saying they didn't have that rapid increase in deaths. The last time they had that, the Nazis and the Americans were fighting a war in Italy, and the death went up, clearly because there was a freaking war. And the time before that was World War One. This is as bad as a freaking world war in terms of casualties. And yeah, of course you're going to smell all kinds of stuff. I mean, I smell the benzene. I live in the city, so but you can see this.
I know we've been getting bombed again here I'm in central Arizona, and there's been tons of chemtrails, and once again I'm experiencing the metallic taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this chemtrails or is this something
Probably
crazy?
I'm not a doctor, but I think it'd be wise if you are able to, and your doctor will allow your health plan, try and get your blood tested for metals. And regardless of what the thing comes out, we need to somehow reduce our toxic load of metals. And there are, I'm not a specialist in this, but there are things like cilantro and bentonite and zeolite and all this stuff. I'm not the guy for that. But yeah, that's certainly worth looking into, because these metals we're breathing in are really, really not good for us. And I don't know how you protect yourself, because masks don't work, because they, what do you do? Yeah. So
when we left at the end of '97, we moved to Texas, to outside of San Antonio. And the skies were clear and everything was good, and all of the symptoms went away. And I was like, okay, maybe it was the chemtrails. I did have a cousin in Texas, out in the hill country in Uvalde, who ended up in the hospital. He was a roofer, and he became seriously ill and was in the hospital for months, and they attributed it to chemtrails.
The hospital did, or the family?
Yes.
The hospital did?
No, the hospital finally figured out that he had a toxic overload of metals.
Wow, that's something. But they probably said he was probably eating dirt or something to get that.
No,
and you know what,
and that was around the end of '98.
Fran, you know what?
Yeah.
Rick is saying that's the exact same time he was there. And he was seeing it also. Rick, if you're still there, you want to mention that to Fran real quick?
Yeah, because I moved from NorCal in '95, '96.
Me too.
And yeah, that's when I was seeing it, and that's what I was wondering. Because that's the farthest south and east of like Fresno, that I even lived. I'm from the Bay Area, and it totally took me back, and I thought, okay, well maybe it's a Vegas thing, like 24/7 gambling and hookers outside of Clark County. I had no idea. And yeah, so when you said '96, like, okay, I'm not alone.
No, the other weird thing that was going on, where I worked was at a storage place, and when the chemtrails were very thick, I was outside showing people their lockers and stuff, and I kept seeing these very bizarre-looking things on the asphalt that were kind of spidery-looking.
Oh, don't touch that stuff.
And had like a little core, and I touched one, and it vanished.
Yeah, don't do that again. Seriously.
Oh, never. I did it one time.
Yeah, it's like the so on my YouTube channel, I have to go way back because I got so many. If you go on my YouTube channel and search out fibers, I was in Concord in the East Bay, from Northern California, and I was at the Concord BART station, and there were all these like creepy white fibers adorning this fence, and it was the finest stuff. And a couple of days before, I saw this stuff coming down from the sky, and I saw some other stuff in San Francisco. So yeah, that stuff's really creepy. Again, going back to this whole Morgellons/nanotech stuff, it looks nano something, but you don't want to get that in your skin.
That is
but on the other hand, we're breathing it in anyway, so
Exactly.
Fran, I touched one time and it just vanished. It disappeared. It was a good inch across.
Yeah.
And it just disappeared, and I was like, uh-oh. But here in Arizona, about, I don't know, I guess it's about 70 miles from me, these folks found a huge sheet of white, gooey, spiderwebby type stuff hanging on a barbed wire fence out in their yard.
Yikes.
And there were pictures taken, samples taken. One lab said, "Oh, it was nothing."
Of course.
Yeah.
And the other lab said, "Oh yeah, that was definitely something." So it got lost in the stuff.
Before we go, Fran, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wrap up here pretty soon. But go ahead and finish that thought, Patrick.
Oh no, it's just when I remember it was about 5 years ago. I was being driven up in San Francisco, and it was a nice warm night, not a cloud in the sky, and there was like a sprinkle on the windshield, and it was just for like a second or two, but it wasn't enough that you'd actually turn on the windshield wipers, so we didn't. Next day, that stuff had like welded on. It was harder than epoxy.
Jeez.
And it was like, what was that? So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. But it's to save the polar bear, so we should welcome it. Yes.
That's
right.
crazy.
Okay, well, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you all taking my call.
Of course, Fran. Anytime. Thank you so much for calling in.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Patrick,
Hey,
it's been an amazing evening. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was fun. Yeah.
And
it's all fun.
Where can we get more information?
All right, so the best thing is if you just look up my name, it's Patrick Roddie, Roddie, and I spend most of my time on Facebook. That's where I'll get all my current stuff. I also have that website. Oh yeah, also YouTube. It's facebook.com/Patrick Roddie or youtube.com/Patrick Roddie, the main places. I have this website, stopsprayingus-sf.com, but I've been so busy I haven't been updating that as much as I'd like, and I'm also on Twitter and stuff. But the Facebook thing is the best thing for now, and yeah, and I also I'm also a photographer.
Yes.
My website is webbery.com, webbery.com, and that's how I fund my activism. So if you want to support me, look at my work, get me weddings to shoot. That's what keeps a roof over my head and pointing a camera at the sky. That's the best way you can support me.
Wedding season coming up.
Or anything. I'll take a picture of anything. I'll travel anywhere, and I'm reasonable. I'm awesome. So yeah, that is that. So yeah, and come visit me if I'm in San Francisco.
Um,
Oh, definitely. I can do that.
Yeah. Oh, let's do that. Awesome.
You're only hop, skip, and a jump
yes.
away.
Also, yeah, nearly forgot. This Friday coming, in UC Santa Cruz, Ken Caldera, my BFF, is giving the keynote talk at a geoengineering conference, and registration is free. If you can get yourself down to Santa Cruz, let's give him all the warm welcome he deserves.
I love Santa Cruz.
Yeah, so anyone in Northern California, come on down. I think he's on. It's like 7:30 on Friday, and there's also it's also on Saturday and maybe Sunday as well. But Ken himself will be there on Friday. And also, by the way, you should also when you go to my YouTube channel, sort by most viewed.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all the good stuff because there's hundreds of freaking videos on there. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. We'll have to talk during the week about the Santa Cruz thing for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
That'll be fun.
Well, Patrick, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for coming on, and I also want to thank everyone who called in, who was on the panel tonight. Our creative producer of the Beyond the Strange is Rick Sennett. Co-host is LJ3 or Les Johnson III, and our brother Gigi Rabbit. Retweets and posting by Dennis Kutch and Gunny Jean Littell. Music is by Alan Hall and Melody Loops. Intro is by Spaceboy. Visit him at spaceboymusic.com. Bumps and Drops by Brian Anderson and Gunny Jean Littell. You can hear more of Brian at brianandersvoice.com. Tech Advisory by Brian Anderson. And don't forget, next week we have the Betty Cash story. I'll have the announcement later on this week. Until then, have a good night. Be safe, be happy, but most of all, be strange. Hasta.